over to you to lead us in how to stay sane or keep your sanity.
Keep your sanity.
Keep your
Thank
sanity as
you.
a leader. There you go. So over
Yeah,
to
thank
you.
you. Thank you, Steph, and welcome to you all. What I want to do is I've kind of scribbled down 16 things that I found really helpful for me in terms of keeping my sanity as a leader. I've been leading now in church for 10 years. Prior to that, I was a school teacher and a leader in schools. I've just had my 10th anniversary as a church leader, and it's been fun. I could tell you the good times. I could tell you some horrendous stories and some moments of real tragedy. And yeah, and so this is really 16 thoughts that I've thought through how I've kept my sanity. Some of them you'll go, well, that's obvious. Others you'll go, oh, and hopefully there'll be something in that 16 that you can pull out something else. So let me run through this. So the idea is I'll go through this, and then following that we can have some more general conversation. There's no order to this apart from the last one. I think is the most important one, and I've left it at the end for that reason. So number one, build team. I can remember a family service that I led many years ago, and I did it on purpose as a bit of a joke, where I got the band to sit down, and I picked up a guitar and I started singing, and then getting everyone singing, and then said, oh, hang on a minute, this is the offering song. So I ran out the room and ran back in again, said, no, keep singing, ran out, and then came back in again, started throwing baskets around while coming in forward, then trying to do the words, and just try to show this image that if we try, church isn't a one-man band. It isn't. It is about team. It's a body, and leadership has to be about team. It has to be about bringing other people in. And I think one of the best ways to keep your sanity is to build a team around you. And no matter how big or small your church is, there will be a team that you can bring around you to help you on that. So that's number one. Number two, get a hobby. Simple as that. Church leadership is all consuming. You suddenly find that your work and your social life and your weekends and your friends, everyone's in church, and everything's tied around church. And as much as you try and separate them, you can't. You've got to find yourself a hobby, something that is different, something that's outside of church, be that a quiet private one, a craft, or a running. I know, Denver, you've started running, something like that. I play tennis. There's a few things on the side there. I've done some modeling, craft modeling, and I've also found this year, with all the lockdown stuff, I got into gardening, and just something that stopped me thinking about church and give me a focus on something else. So really do encourage you, if you haven't, find yourself a hobby. Number three, and I think this is it's quite interesting that we've got a group of blokes here. I think this is a key one for us. Give people something to talk about. I don't know if you've ever had that moment in the coffee queue of church, when we could be in a coffee queue, and you're stood there and someone comes up alongside you and they look at you and then they go, oh, I didn't think much about the service last week, and they just start talking about church. And it's like, and you've become frustrated. Why does everyone always have to talk about church? Well, I think the simple reason is they've got nothing else to talk to you about. All they know about you is church. So when they see you, they think, oh, it's Mark, I'll talk about church. So give them something else to talk about. That's why I'll talk about football. And as Denver knows, we're two sad Arsenal fans. But actually, suddenly, for in a coffee queue, someone can go, oh, what do you think about the game yesterday? They've got something to talk about rather than talking about business and church. So give people something to talk about. Number four, I do this an awful lot, laugh at yourself. A simple way to keep sane is laughter. There's and especially laughing at yourself. That never take yourself too seriously. You're not that important. You're not that good. You're not that essential. Laugh at yourself. It breaks tension. It brings people together. And the other thing it does is it shows that you're human and you make mistakes. We noticed this quite quickly on with doing video services, that we were putting out the best of us because we were recording lots and lots of times, but putting out the best cut. And then other people have a go. So, oh, it's so hard. You make it look so easy. And I'm thinking, well, actually, you just need to see the. You know, my wife and I were hosting. I think there were twice I made her cry. I think there's all this tension which you don't see. So, I mean, we decided to put out an outtake video of just a little bit of humour. Let's laugh at ourselves at what we're doing wrong. And so people went, oh, that was so reassuring. So laugh at yourself. Keep that in. Yeah, that's a key one. Number 5, really simple science here: eat, sleep, and exercise. In terms of keeping sanity, eat well, eat healthily, stay away from McDonald's and other fast food joints. Sleep well. You could do a whole session, couldn't you, on how do you sleep well? Some of the things I'll go on to is how, you know, some of the ways we can get rid of things in our head. It helps us sleep well. But one way to sleep well that I have to keep reminding myself is go to bed early. You know, don't be up at 1 a.m. working. Go to bed, sleep well, and exercise. Get out there. I think we've all appreciated, haven't we, through lockdown, that sort of almost daily exercise, daily walking. It does us so much good. Number 6, to keep your sanity, stop comparing on social media. I can lose my sanity by 1 p.m. on a Sunday when I go online and I can look through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever, and I look at church leaders saying, oh, we've had the, you know, what a fantastic best Sunday ever, and all these amazing quotes that people put up. And then I start thinking, and then suddenly you feel everything drain away. Just be aware of that. Stop comparing yourself on social media. We've got to remember that social media is the best of. No one ever puts up on social media, well, that Sunday was all right, wasn't it? Bit boring, but it was okay. When in reality, quite a lot of Sundays are all right, but we don't put those out there. So be careful of that one. Two practical ones. Number 7, stay on top of emails and communication. I don't know if you're like me. If I find that if I don't respond to an email in a day or two, it disappears. But that creates a stress and an embarrassment that then is quite hard to deal with, or it builds. You just find things build up. So I try to just stay on top of those communications and find a time to sit down and look through them. I just find that can really help stress. Maybe set yourself a rule to respond to every email within a day or within 2 days, even if it's just a thank you, I'll get back to you. At least acknowledge an email. But number 8 is stay off emails. It might sound strange to say the two together, but there's a kind of bit of a basic leadership thing. Emails take absolutely no energy. They're actually energy draining things to trawl through emails and messages. So a real good tip is know when you are most energized, most creative, and don't go to your emails then. Use that time to write the sermon, to look forward, to do vision planning. Use your creative time, your energy time for good stuff. And then when your energy's low, maybe after lunch, end of the day, then look at your emails and then just go through that administration. Don't spend all time going backwards and forwards with emails. I'm sure, I hope you will do this, but I have every single notification turned off. So my phone, my laptop, they don't beep at me, they don't flash at me, they don't tell me anything. If I want to find emails, I have to go into the emails and find them. And it just, those little things that, don't keep looking at them. So stay on top of emails, but also stay off emails when you are doing other things. And that really is then moves into number 9, switch off. I've recently started, partly because my wife encouraged me to, and it's been really good. On my day off, I turn my phone off. I have my phone is a church phone, but it's my phone. It's my only phone. So there's a dual purpose there. But on my day off, I turn my phone off. Again, it's a little bit of an ego thing, isn't it? Oh, but I'm so important. People have to get in touch with me. Well, no, they don't. And so my phone is off. most times, most days off, not always. If I go on holiday, then I just create a little folder on my phone and I put all the apps that I shouldn't, and I've just put a title, stay out. And I put all those things in there because there's no notifications popping up. It's not telling me anything. I don't look at it. Really learn ways to power off devices so they're not getting in the way. Are we still with? Still okay? We're nearly through this list. Number 10: set aside focus days, or focus times. When you look at your diary, carve out a day, a morning, where you can just pause and think. Be that vision, be that planning, be that creativity, just to be able to get away from things. Find out where your creative time is. I've discovered, weirdly, that, and I think quite a few people have this, I'm a sort of extrovert but introvert. I'm a bit of a mix. So I like being around people, but not necessarily interacting with them. So actually, sitting in a coffee shop on my own with a notebook, I find just that noise and that people around are really focusing time. Or going for a walk is another time I can find that. Other people love retreats and prayer retreats and things, but schedule those times in so you have quality time to stop and think and plan rather than always just responding. That will really, really help. And alongside that, in terms of diary, number 11, I would recommend keep your diary as flexible as possible. I run a principle where the pre-lockdown, the only things that I had in my diary, apart from sort of team meetings, it's the only church events I had Sunday, and I had a prayer meeting on a Monday morning. They were the only events that I said I will have to be at. I might pop in on other events, but I've kept my diary as clear as possible so I don't have to be. We can fill our diary up so easily, can't we? I must be at this meeting, I must be here, but then there's no time left. So my diary is relatively clear 2 weeks in advance. And then as I get closer to that week, I'll start booking people in, or I'll start responding to need. But it just means by having a clear diary, we've got the ability to adjust. There's this stupid thing we have as church leaders that almost a busy diary is a badge of honor. And that's absolutely ridiculous. I often have to challenge people. Say, I know you'll be so busy. I said, well, I'm not busy. I want to make time for people and to respond to things. So keep your diary as flexible as possible. Number 12, get some friends. Best way to keep sanity is get some friends, and outside of the church. Make sure that friendships are outside of the church and outside of the church world as well. So friends not connected to church as well. That was one of the reasons I started playing tennis, is to start to meet people. I play in a local league, and so I play against people that I don't know, and it's a chance for conversation and getting to know people. And then within those friends, number 13, have someone who can call you a muppet. Have those close friendships, those accountability friendships within that group. That's that person that you've given permission to go, oi, you're out of order there, and building on those. They really are helpful. Those people that can challenge you and encourage you. I would really encourage that. One of the greatest things that I've done recently, there's 4 local churches, ground level churches, and the 4 couples we meet up. Actually today my wife's out with the 4 wives, and next week the 4 men are out for a curry, and we've got a really good friendship, but it's supportive, and I know I can message them and they'll be there. If I'm in a crisis moment, I know that in half an hour one of them will say, I'm there. And make sure you've got those sort of people around you. Number 14, alongside having people to support, have someone to look up to. There's nothing better than spending time with people who are further along the journey than you, the journey of leadership, or are leading bigger churches. A couple of things happens. One is it lifts you up and it encourages you and motivates you to step up. Second thing is you realize actually you're doing okay, because you're not that much different to they are, and you realize actually life isn't too bad. So have someone you can look up to and learn from. And likewise, number 15, look the other way. Have someone you can invest into. That might be someone in church, or I've got a couple of people that I mentor who are outside of the church. One's a youth leader from a local church who a friend of a friend got in touch, and I meet with him twice a year. It's not hard work. We have a coffee or something, and we talk. And I find out how he's doing, and I share a little bit of wisdom, and it's very straightforward. And I've got another friend lives down in Leicester, and we meet a couple of times a year for sort of accountability and conversation as well. And he's asked me, will I be his accountability partner, his spiritual advisor or something? Strangely, he's the guy that led me to Christ in the first place. So that's a long-term friendship. But have those people that you're investing into. It does you good when you invest into someone and build them up. And then this is number 16, so we've come right through, and I probably could have put loads of more stuff in. Number 16 is probably the key one. Spend time with God for you. Feed yourself. I had a conversation with a friend from the Salvation Army a few years ago, and he moved from being a church leader into more general ministry work within the church, within the Salvation Army. So he wasn't a congregation leader. He was overseeing old people's homes and things, and all of that work. He suddenly realized he'd stopped reading his Bible because he was no longer preparing sermons. And he had realized that he had got to a position where the only time he'd read his Bible was when he had to prepare something or deliver something. And that's not a healthy place to be in. If the only time we go to God is when we need something for others, it means we're not feeding ourselves. I remember sharing a picture at a ground level, as a prophecy picture at a ground level meeting once, of two animals in wildlife. One is a spider, where the babes, when they're born, devour the mother and eat the mother once the babes are. And that was a picture actually for some church leaders who are allowing their congregation, because they're not feeding themselves, to be devoured. And then the other picture was of a bird, a mother chick feeding a mother bird feeding a chick. And it's that out of the overflow of what she has, she feeds the chick. And really that should be what we're like with God. So find a rhythm, find the time to pause, find the time to really dwell in God. I'm always encouraged by the story of David. There's the time when David is with his kind of mighty 600 men. He's actually fighting with the Philistines, but the Philistines then send them back. And they go back to the town, and they find that the town's been ransacked. The wives and the children have been taken into captivity. They've been rejected by the people they're working with, and all of David's men turn on him and start going at him. And that's and then in that context we have the verse 1 Samuel 31, possibly, but don't quote me on that, where it says, "But David encouraged himself in the Lord." He took responsibility for his spiritual well-being, and he strengthened himself in the Lord. He found his strength in God. And as leaders, that's what we need to do. If we want to keep sanity, we've really got to look to God and focus in on him. So 16 little thoughts that I've just picked up over my sort of time of leadership. I don't know if anyone wants to come back on any of those, if anybody wants to add on any of those or ask any questions about any of those. But those are 16 little thoughts or little nuggets that I have. So let's turn the mics on, and if anyone's got any thoughts or questions, comments, come back.
I think all of them, Mark, all of them are just just to list them all like that, just remind you that all of them are just elements that we have to refer to. And I think by doing this list, I'm going to actually put this list as a screensaver, I think, and have it on my computer, because you forget that some of those things on there they're all equally as important. The last one is the most important one, as you said, but one that made me realise in it, and you forget about it, number 3, when he said give people something else besides church to talk about. You walk into church and all they want to talk about is we've been open now for for a month, but it's all about church. There's nothing about, not even saying to me, how have you been getting on? What's been happening in your life? It's all about what we're going to be doing next, what we're doing this, how we're going to do this, or, and it's like, you think, and yet we've actually been communicating as a church since March, and we've so they know what's going off. But when they see you face to face, it's suddenly, right, he's back now. We can nail him, And
I
I get
suppose,
accused of people, it's ridiculous.
yeah. I think we've got to be careful both ways on that one, because we've got to make sure that we're not just talking about church with people.
Yeah.
A friend of mine within the church, we asked him last year to step up to take oversight of our worship, and one of the comments he said was, "Can we still be friends? Can we still make sure that we meet up as friends?" Because the temptation would be, well, every time I meet him, we talk about practical church stuff. Another guy in the church, we've just asked him, he's just stepped up to be a trustee, and again he said, we need to make sure, there's times when I need to speak to you as a trustee, but I also want to speak to you as a friend. Now if we've got to model that to others, so that we are talking. Here's a little one. I was talking with my team the other day. The temptation is, if we've got a reason to speak to someone, we'll do that horrible thing of, how are you? And then, oh, by the way, this is what I really want to talk to you about. What I encouraged the team to do was, well, why not just actually phone the person, and then a day or two later, phone them again for that thing. Separate the two. Otherwise it becomes really false, doesn't it? And actually be interested in people just for people's sake. Everything in you wants to go into the conversation about something else. Now, if they bring it up, fair enough. But if we are always leveraging our time with others into business, then we're modeling that. It's time consuming, but it's beneficial.
I think as well.
Adding, Mark, is one we're learning. You can't please all the people all the time. So don't even try. I like what you just said about ringing people up. You remind me very much when I spent a few years working in Holland in business. They like to do business over business breakfasts and business lunches. But you don't eat till the business is done. So it all got done very quickly. And once the business was concluded, you didn't talk about it anymore.
Yeah.
So there were quite demarcation lines between being social and business.
Whereas if you look, say, in a Nigerian culture, that will be, actually, we sit down and we eat. And that's the social part's the first thing they do as a culture. Let's not talk about making a meeting. Let's sit down and eat together, and then maybe things come out of that. And I think it's just being aware of that, isn't it? I think I had about 30 of these when I initially wrote it, and one I threw out was focus on the people who are with you. So yes, this whole thing. I remember a time once early in leadership, I was walking. We've all had times where we have people who join us and people who leave us. And I think I was walking around praying, and I was praying for the people who'd left, and God just challenged me, said, look, they've left. Pray and focus on the people who are with you. And that's quite a key one. We can become fixated on the negatives or the doubt, the disappointment, and then we miss actually the people who are faithful and around us.
Just on the obviously we're on about kind of sanity in this journey. I think fantastic points that you've made. Some that I obviously have already practiced, and some that I've put into practice, and some that I need to take on board a lot more of. So I really appreciate and value that input there. Sanity-wise, personally for myself, one of the things that I've struggled with more towards the end of this lockdown, from coming out of doing things online to actually going now live service. This is where the letters have come, the emails have come, where there's kind of very much there's like a left wing and right wing, kind of one side that the church doesn't believe that it even exists, even though we've had people in our church that have died of COVID, and some that have really struggled and are still struggling now because they've had it and been in hospital with it. And we've got another side that are all word of faith, that are very much like we are in a place where things like this don't touch us. And so I'm hiding as a minister and leader, and my leadership team, we're all hiding behind a mask and hand sanitizer. We don't have the word of faith. We don't believe the word of God. And because we have put, obviously, guidance in place to be compliant with COVID-19, we are not worshipping God, we're worshipping the government. and because of that, we can't possibly be blessed as a church. And also, we've had 2 or 3 couples that have actually left the church. I'm kind of to the point where if you can pray them in, you can also pray them out. So thankfully, some of them have probably been prayed out over this time as well, which is a blessing in sometimes in a good way. But how, and I've kind of struggled in this last probably 3 weeks, to be quite honest with you, since we've kind of opened the church, more than I have through the kind of 5 months of being online, in just some of, being a leader, you've got to be balanced, you've got to be down the line, you can't lean one side to the other, can't be, but I've really, and our leadership have kind of struggled with this in just keeping the sanity of, that we're preferring others over ourselves. Like it says, and the big thing we've used is Philippians 2:3, where it just says to prefer others over ourselves, and the reason we wear a mask. So, how have you kind of, have you had to because that's the bit that we've kind of struggled, I think, mentally with is stuff that we've ended up talking through, and we feel like on a consistent basis. We just had a leadership meeting this morning, and we had one last Thursday, because there's this stuff arising, there's emails coming, there's letters coming, from people that are just saying that we're almost off the wall, if that makes sense. And found it a bit, personally, I found it a bit of an interesting kind of struggling, because I believe the Word of God to be true and the fundamentals of the Word of God, and I believe God is a healer, but I also believe that we have an adversary that, and obviously it's a real thing that we're dealing with, and we have to be cautious. So I don't know, it's been a kind of mental situation for us, and I don't know if anybody else concurs or has dealt with that as well.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting one, that, Denver, and I think I've noticed over the last 3-4 years that social media does this to some extent, with algorithms, so but things have become more and more polarized, so that people's opinions have become more and more at odds with each other, whether it's a political thing or a Brexit thing or a whatever, response to COVID, it becomes really polarized. And it's not necessarily about having a middle ground. I think as a leader, so let me answer this from a leader's point of view, and then maybe some others can from a more general point of view. I think we've got to be careful as leaders that we don't. I personally say politically, I keep very quiet. Opinions. I don't use social media to share opinions or strong opinions one way or another. So I stay out of it that way. But as a church, we've kind of, I think we can get to a point where we have this is what we're standing for. In terms of the COVID thing, we can say this is what we're doing, and this is why we're doing it. And sometimes we've got to get to the point where we say to people, look, this is the bus. If you don't like where the bus is going, well, there's other buses. And we can't, as Andrew was saying, we can't sort of bow to every win that people have, but we need to have a clear understanding. And I think you're right. We a lot of what we're doing isn't. Some of it is for the sake of the wider community and what it says. Some of it is being honourable. It's being honouring, but also there is the safety side. There is all the risk sides, etc. So I think what I'm trying to say there. One thing is, I think we've got to be careful as an individual that we don't have a stated opinion. And I think personally, I would always keep my opinion to myself or to my team. But as a church, I think we can walk towards this is what we believe, or this is what we're doing as a church. And I think that can be helpful. I don't know, has anyone had any particular experiences?
We're in it at the moment. And thanks, Denver, that you're not on your own there, mate. We're very, very similar position to where you are as a church. And as Mark mentions, almost a polarization. We have got factions in the church, and it's since we reopened and of having meetings, it's really opened them up. While we were YouTube and Zooming, we had a lot more people actually coming and visit and joining in, as much as you can work out from the numbers. We actually had a lot more people contributing. because somebody went out with a camera and stuff like that. But it was, for a small church like us, it was so labour intensive. It was sort of 3 days to 4 days it was taking us to put together, hour and a half for a Sunday morning, and it was exhausting. So we started meeting again under the government guidelines, and our numbers have plummeted straight away because we've got some that won't come out of fear. They're not going anywhere, and they think it was wrong that we went to meeting again. We've got others that think we should be meeting John MacArthur style, and that's where Mark's right. Their influence is coming worldwide, aren't they?
Mm.
So if you're aware of John MacArthur, I assume you are. They're not coming because they think we should all tear our masks off and start laying on our hands and doing that. And it's tiring. But what we as a small leadership group sense is that God has given us a direction and a strategy to follow. And it just so happens at the same time we're in a particularly tough, demanding preaching series he's led us into, Matthew 24, 25. And that's, I'm not kidding you, that's scary. And it's asking huge questions of people. Put bluntly, are you sheep or a goat? And as Mike just said, are you on the bus or not on the bus? I'm absolutely fired up that God is working his purposes out through this. And the sense as well that he's fitting us. The training now is intensified. You've gone through basic training and now we're specialising off. And the fall away rate is going to be high. As the script said, many will fall away. And
that's definitely happening, Andrew. And I think what was happening pre-lockdown is people their diet of who they were listening to was quite wide anyway. But now suddenly, we've got some folks in the church will go to 5-6 churches on a Sunday because they can watch different things, and suddenly you just come across where are you coming out with this sort of thing? But it's there on the internet, and unfortunately on the internet you can find anything to back up your theory or your point of view, and we're going to find this more and more. Sometimes I think there's a discernment as well, Denver. Sometimes you've got to go, actually this is a battle worth fighting, and other times it's like, all right, see ya. We just had one of those, someone sort of moved on from the church because they suddenly got this thing that we shouldn't be singing Hillsong, or
we've had that,
and we just went, look, if you want to go to a different church, because it doesn't matter what you say, how you say it, they found something on the internet that backs them up, and it suddenly becomes fact, and then you've just had that discernment. I'm not even gonna you can waste so much time and energy on these things. And I think for our sanity as leaders, we've got to know, actually, this just isn't worth the effort.
I think one of the most challenging things is that as churches, it's quite, or so what I see in churches, it's often sometimes hard to learn to disagree well. And actually disagreeing well is actually something that's, it's a good fruit to have. We had a local church leaders meeting recently, and we sort of challenged each other really that, we're taking quite a safe route. We're in a local lockdown area, a lot of cases around us, and we're going, 30's our max. All the precautions are there. But the person who's open up just in the town, like a mile away, where they've got 100 odd people singing, they're doing track and trace, I think, but not much more else. We're trying to respect each other in that journey, that we're all going through this journey differently, but we're trying to respect each other, even if we disagree with each other. And so that sort of temptation to sort of, they're doing it wrong, when actually, we're all just trying to interpret things as we see it from the government. We're trying to interpret how God sees things. We're just trying to, do our best, aren't we?
Yeah.
So I think trying not to beat ourselves up. And I've got to be honest, going through the 16, occasionally I was going, I'm not doing that well enough. I'm not doing that well enough. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So not beating ourselves up about how we are doing it, which is so tempting to do, isn't it? Oh, I'm not doing it as well as they are. Yeah. Disagreeing well when it, that's a trait that, when it comes to things like Brexit, when it comes to things like, this debate about COVID, sometimes I just think you might sort of want to pull your hair out with the church and go, come on, guys, let's just disagree well.
Yeah. No, I think that you could do an awful lot of teaching on how to behave on social media and so on, but actually you end up doing teaching, and the people that need to hear it don't hear it, so it becomes a worthless activity, really. But I think on that one, Gareth, I think the key is comparison, isn't it? Is it? I can't remember who said it. Comparison is the thief of all joy, or something. Is that a made-up quote, or is that someone's quote? It really does rob you when we start to compare, and we've just got to look to God and be faithful with what we've got and what we're doing. And we can look to others for encouragement and ideas and so on. But as soon as we start doing that comparing thing, I do it. It's human nature, but I think we just got to look to God and get our affirmation from Him.
Agree with you there. Silence.
So, is that sort of coming towards the end, Steph? I don't know how long.
Steph.
Yeah, so I mean, if anyone's got any other questions regards to maybe the 16 things that Mark's mentioned, feel free to ask them now. Otherwise, if not, then we'll finish here. And Mark, thank you so much for all that you've inputted. I mean, some of the things like switching off, don't always look at your emails. It was actually my dad, who is the director of ground level, so he's kind of top of me, was telling me off when we were on holiday, going, why are you looking at emails?
I think I've told you off once as well, haven't I, Steph?
When they come at 9 o'clock at night, it's like, you don't work those hours. So even in just a work basis, those actually are quite key as well, those points. So yeah, but thank you, Mark. Any other questions?
Well, not about it. It's all brief. Thanks, Mark.
Well, thank you, Mark.
And Denver and Gareth and Richard.
Right, well, it's lovely to see you all. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be with us, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day.